Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
It is Qatar Grand Prix. We have the preview here. We're going to talk about all things Qatar. But first, before we do, we just want to take a moment and say hello to everybody watching and listening, because we've been going now not long. I think it's been about 6 weeks or something. And we've got fans all over the world. We've got a big shout out to New Zealand. We've got a lot of fans in New Zealand who are watching us. We can see that. Australia, I think we've got guys over there as well. The US, the UK, Holland as well. Ik hou van Hollandia, dank u wel. So yeah, wherever you're from, if you're watching, please let us know in the comments. We want to know where you're from, and we really appreciate your watching us. So we hope we'll continue the information and plenty of information about Qatar. So we spoke a bit on the last episode, Darren. I've been to Qatar. And I've been there a few times. I've been there for the first Formula One Grand Prix in 2021. I returned to work on the MotoGP as well, which was amazing. It's the first bike race I've been to, and certainly since getting passed my bike test. And also went to the World Cup. So I went to the World Cup and saw 4 matches, including England. USA, which was terrible, but it was a great buzz. And Qatar is, for people who don't know, I'm in the Middle East a lot, and so Qatar is it's one of the more conservative Middle East countries, and a lot of it revolves around Doha being the capital. And Doha's quite built up. There's skyscrapers and lots of buildings, and it's got a real proper pumping city. And the track, Lusail, is to the north. I think it's a good 20-30 minutes drive north of the city. So you're just driving on this motorway and you're passing like the Lusail football stadium, and lots of huge buildings left and right. It's quite amazing. Then you come off the junction and you get into the Lusail circuit. And when I was there in 2021, it was the first time. It was a bit of a backup race, I think I remember, because they were changing the schedule still because of the fallout of COVID and some things like that. But they pulled it off. We had a race, and being Middle Eastern, it was hot, it was sunny, dusty, as you'd expect, but the hospitality and the vibes were fantastic. I was in the Paddock Club, and there were lots of footballers there as well. They were gearing up for the World Cup the next year. And I did also bump into David Beckham.
You did,
who
didn't
was
you?
There.
That was there.
As part of his ambassadorship. Yeah, he was there. I think I may have messaged you. I can't remember.
You sent me a few
probably.
photos
Sounds
saying,
like
this
something I
guy
do.
reminds me of you. That's what you were saying.
Yeah, this guy's nearly got as much money. So Beckham was there, and I remember he was hankering on the grid for a picture with Lewis, and I think they finally did say hi and have a chat. But yeah, lots of kind of action. It's all changed. The circuit hasn't changed, I understand, but the facilities have. And since then, we've had the Saudi Grand Prix, which is very close by. Yeah. And the Saudi, like Paddock especially, is really phenomenal. They've got huge structures. They've got like tree-like buildings, and they are supposed to emulate trees because it gives shade. And they probably serve functions like cooling, because the Arabs actually invented this amazing cooling system where you have a turret and then you have holes and sticks, and then as air passes, the cool air sinks, and it's a natural form of air conditioning. So I don't know if it's part of that, if they're using that for an aircon space, but certainly shade is a welcome thing in the Middle East. There's lots of new buildings as well. They've got 50 garages, I've heard.
50?
In the pits. There's 50
Wow.
50 pit boxes. So each team is going to have, for this race, they're going to have a couple at least. They could have 4. But, we could have a lot more teams in F1, which we may come along to a bit later. Wink, wink. So, and it's great. And they do after show concerts as well. I know this year they're doing Bruno Mars. He's out there.
Wow.
Plus a host of others. So, and out with the World Cup, they had lots of stars that were coming over and performing at the World Cup. So it is becoming a bit of a fixture on the map now, and it's there for 10 years. This is the start of a 10-year contract for Qatar for the Formula One Grand Prix. And if you're in the Middle East and you're watching us, it's an hour flight pretty much from everywhere. Bahrain is a difficult one. The diplomatic ties aren't there, so you have to go via Kuwait or go via Dubai to get to Qatar, even though it's probably about 20 minutes flight because it's so close. But anyone else coming from Europe or Asia or the States, maybe fly to Dubai or Jeddah, and then you can transfer there. Or you can actually fly to Qatar, and Qatar Airways are there. That's enough of an ad about Qatar.
Well,
but
I think you've been amazing.
It's a very... how informative was that? That was great.
Your research
like and subscribe.
Knowledge. Yes, I feel totally inadequate now. This is the Joe Lee podcast. Keep it going.
This is So I just had to dump all that out. But you can get everywhere. There's Ubers, and it's a very modern city, and all the big hotels are there. So it's a great city to go and visit, and they've got some great architecture as well. So yeah, I mean, all focus this weekend. Really, this is when Max should sew this up, Darren.
Yeah, I totally agree. I must say, I did fly in on my way back from Kuala Lumpur and spent all of 93 minutes on the ground. So got to see it, but only from a distance as I took off. But Max, this weekend, he should tie it up in the sprint race. Now, there's questions of, is that the time to actually win a world championship during a sprint rather than during a Grand Prix? At the end of the day, the rules are the rules. You can score points in the sprint. Of course, you're going to win the championship in a sprint, possibly. So, and I think it all depends on Perez finishing. I think he only needs to finish 6th or something, or Perez outscoring him or something like that. But I think we're seeing this season that the sprint is becoming more important anyway, and a thing of its own. And I'm not been a fan of change because I love the Saturday qualifying with the Sunday race, but these sprint weekends do mix it up and just show there is different forms of racing and models out there that we can experience within Formula One. So I'm warming to it the more we go with it. And the difficult thing is, though, I now want to watch quali, which is on a Friday. I then want to watch sprint quali, or shootout as they call it, on a Saturday. So we've got to, as fans, we've got to invest even more time in sitting in front of the television. It's brilliant for fans at the circuit who have paid a 3-day, a weekend pass and are there and are getting more entertainment. For the TV viewer, it's more investment of sofa.
I think that's great for the TV fan, and also we're seeing more like fan zone setups. You've got F1 Arcade in London, for example, which is an official Formula One kind of fan zone, you could call it, with simulators and the bar and big screens to watch the races. Some of these fan zones have got great screens, they've got the whole shebang, and depending on the time of the race, you're going to be having breakfast there, or you're going to be having dinner, or or whatever. So,
and Joe, what it reminds me of is basically what we experience in Paddock Club. The only thing is you can't walk out the door onto the balcony and see the cars go by, but the experience of the big screens, the excellent audio-visual experience seems to me what F1 Arcade brings. And I think that's more exciting than maybe just sat at home by yourself watching it, to be surrounded by other fans and create an atmosphere. We forget as well that this happens with football all the time. People go out to the pub to go and watch the football with strangers sitting around them, but as long as they each support Chelsea or whatever, then that's fine. Then you're talking, you're getting on, you're having a couple of drinks. Same with the bigger tournaments when there are big fan zones, big screens, but more of these bars now, they're going like with this concept, this high concept of a big screen and showing that. You mentioned Paddock Club. Inside Paddock Club, they have huge screens where people often will watch the race and they'll see the feed there, and then nip to the balcony quick. Straight past. Okay, right, go back in and see how they're getting on. That's a great thing when you're there, because you get to. It's very difficult when you're actually at the race. Most people who have been to a race would know this, because if you're at one corner or one position, you'll see that, and then you have to wait 1.5, 2 minutes or whatever. Yeah. For them to come around again, and you don't know what's happened the rest of the track unless you go to the Portuguese Grand Prix, which we love. But which we did.
So the screens are great, and there's also they have F1 TV is their live feed, but they have another, I forget what it's called, but it's an actual feed on a screen where you can sit in the grandstands and watch the action right in front of you and see it in front of you. So it's that blend, I think, as the future evolves with technology. Wi-Fi is getting better, 5G is getting better. You're going to be able to sit there at the grandstand, see it on your phone, and then look up, and then there's Lewis and there's Max. So yeah, that's a great thing about technology coming up and new changes. I mean, talking of new changes, we've got new F1 teams sniffing around as well.
Yes.
And look, I'll let you do the reveal, Darren. What's the big news this week?
Well, the big news is Michael Andretti and his racing team have been approved by the FIA to race in Formula One, but it's not the end of the story yet. So FIA have approved them, but Formula One have now got to approve, and this is where the money comes in rather than the ability to be able to do the sport. Are they prepared to share the prize money between 11 teams and not the 10? And that's the difficult thing. So one thing I've seen is that there is potentially he could make a payment of $165 million to the rest of the teams, which will create the shortfall of money they would lose in prize money to let them in. So there's an element of that could happen because money is just numbers at the end of the day. But the reality is will he come in and be a backmarker, or will they actually come in and shake something up like the Jordan Formula One team did in the 90s, and went on to win races within that decade? Or will they be like Haas, where everything's a bit of a struggle and they get the odd, bit of success, especially with qualifying, when Magnussen got on that pole position? We just won't know. But for me, as we've said, we need more drivers on the grid. We need more teams. We really need the 12 that the Concord Agreement states. Michael Andretti, what do we know about him? Mario Andretti, his dad, is Formula One world champion, and back in the 70s, and is just a great ambassador of the sport. And Michael raced himself for McLaren. I want to say early 90s. I would have to check that. I'm sort of thinking 93. Possibly
he raced with Senna, I think.
Yes, he raced with him, so it could be 92.
And he was replaced by Mika Hakkinen.
Look at that. Right, so you're on it. Good man. So, but didn't really have much success. I think it's a similar sort of career to Nick de Vries that we're witnessing at the moment, and he ended up going back to IndyCar. But since finishing being a driver and having the backing of that Andretti world champion name, he has created the most fantastic team that races in IndyCar and various other formulas around the world. But of course, what he wants is Formula One, and he's been very aggressive in his approach to try and get it. But I understand they actually looked at 6 different teams, but Andretti are the only ones that FIA have approved to be put forward to Formula One. So I think it's going to be a few months. Yes.
There's like a criteria. You want to join the club? Well, you need to kind of do this, and you've got to do that, and what about this? My question is, who are the fans going to be? I mean, when you see a sea of orange, I mean, the Fodder Max are then your kind of de facto Red Bull fans. I mean, they would have to probably use existing drivers that we know and love, because if you were to, for example, to transplant Mick Schumacher or Daniel Ricciardo, for example, as those two, well, then you've kind of got a bit of a fan base, certainly with Ricciardo, so you kind of need to hire a star, I think, to get a bit of that star power, to get the fan engagement so you can sell the shirts, and the caps, and create a bit of a buzz, because otherwise they're just going to be another team, and there's not going to be much of a...
I think you're absolutely right, but what I love about Formula One, which is very different to football, is everybody sits together. I could be sat there as a Mercedes Lewis fan or a McLaren Norris fan, whatever it is. I'm a Brit. I follow all the Brit drivers, and the teams they race in. But you can be sat there next to a Haas fan and next to a Red Bull fan, and we're all together as Formula One fans. It's not the tribal Liverpool, Tottenham, for example, this weekend with VAR and so on. We don't seem to have that. It's got more of that, I suppose, rugby family feel to it. So I think that when a new team does come along, I think we'll all embrace them a little bit because we'll all be excited to see a new team. But they do need to hire top drivers to bring the masses to it and to be able, the experienced ones, to start getting some results, because we've seen a new team with rookie drivers. It's too much of a risk. I think funnily enough, I think Ricciardo's a good shout for 2026 or whenever they plan to come in. We'll
refer back to this video in this moment when I'm completely correct, and then
we will.
I put the bet on. Well, there's plenty of new drivers coming through from F2 and rookies, existing drivers. There may also, you never know, be some female drivers, and we saw this week some incredible news. Jessica Hawkins drove an F1 car with Aston Martin, not at a race, but where was it? Silverstone or?
I think it was Silverstone. I'm not. I've got to be honest. I didn't check that, but
I think it looked like Silverstone.
Yeah,
but that's a great thing. And sorry, Darren. The F1 Academy. Which Susie Wolff, Toto Wolff's wife, is leading, is trying to bring more women into the sport. We also have great causes like More Than Equal as well, spearheaded by Kate Bevan, who's a former hospitality director at Formula One. Who the question is, why aren't women in Formula One? Why aren't they driving? We had the W Series, but that's gone now. That didn't quite work. So I think having women in the main series, in the Formula One series, is a good thing. And it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. In my opinion, it's about your times. And if you're quicker and maybe lighter because of the physicality, I don't know, maybe it's a stereotype, but I think you could really fly. And so this is real untapped potential.
Well, Joe, looking back at grassroots and me being involved in the karting world at the moment, we're seeing a lot of girls racing, much more than I expected, and they are competitive. They really, really are. But I think
I met some at Forest Edge. It was amazing.
Definitely.
They were super competitive. Yeah, man, they were great at flying.
Yeah, so I think it's a sign of the times that we're seeing in this world of the 2020s, where equal opportunity, it really doesn't matter at all about what sex you are, what colour, all those things you are. It is about who's the fastest, and we need to see that. The W Series, I'm disappointed it didn't work, because it was there as a support race for a number of Formula Ones, and I saw Jessica race for the W Series in Spa, and and there's a number of, there's Garcia as well, and a number of them that really need to be in those Formula One cars testing. And I think there needs to be a lot more of it. I think it's a brilliant thing for Aston Martin to have done. We can make jokes about whether she's already earned her place as the second driver in that team already, but we need to see it. And it's not the first time. I think the last time there was a female driver on the grid was something like 1981. So we're not doing anything new here, but there's definitely a lack of opportunity in the world of the Formula One hierarchy that needs breaking down just to allow it to happen. So I think we're going to see it. Now, on mixing this up with the female driver and the new teams, there was a team called Rodin Carlin. Now, everybody who's into Formula 2 will know of the Carlin team. And they joined together with Rodin and put a bid together that has been turned down by the FIA. But one of the plans of their bid was that one of the seats would be reserved for a female driver. So they were absolutely determined. They will have one male, one female driver. The only thing is now, with saying that, is it takes it away from, well, why don't you just reserve both seats for your two fastest drivers, rather than male and female? So it's not solving the problem for me at the moment. It's got to be the best drivers. Doesn't matter if they're male or female.
I would agree. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're going to be in one series, it's about your times. So, look, a great opportunity for Jessica Hawkins she had, and it was great to see. Look, let's hope she can build on that, and we can get other female drivers in as well.
Let's see what happens, Joe. Yeah, and in 10 years' time, look back at this podcast again and look back on how we have been talking about it and how things have progressed. Maybe 5 years' time, maybe 3
years.
Well, that's what I thought, yeah.
That's good. Well, we haven't had to wait 10 years for this new Qatar Grand Prix. I mean, again, it is about Max really sewing this up. Now, we talked, it could be, so the sprint race, because of the points, he could get this, which would be fantastic. Then it's the battle for second, really, in the Constructors' Championship. It's kind of all up for grabs. I think there's 4 teams that could potentially get second. Mercedes, perhaps the favourites, but their lead isn't massive.
Well, I think that Mercedes are the most consistent driver lineup. And I think driver lineups are going to come into this. Ferrari, with Sainz absolutely exploding this second half of the season and being the only team to have actually overcome Red Bull at Singapore, which we all know about and have talked about, their driver lineup is really strong as well. Aston Martin is a one-driver team. They're going to struggle, and I think they will end up finishing 4th. I just think the gap between McLaren and Aston Martin is too big for McLaren to get to with only a few races left. However, I'm sure you are there cheering them on every step of the way to do it, Joe.
I got the shirt. Yeah, I got the shirt. I mean, yeah, anything can happen. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, Qatar is a close race. Bahrain is kind of the home race for McLaren, and that was one to forget this season. I was there for that one in Bahrain, and it was pretty shocking. But the improvements they've made over the season, I mean, they could definitely get third. They need to overtake Ferrari. Ferrari are strong. It's such a great end to the season because, look, Red Bull have done it, fantastic, but I'm so invested in this second, third, fourth place. I think this is really one to watch.
Well, they are 64 points behind Ferrari now, Joe, and I just think with 6 races left, are they going to outscore Ferrari by 10 points a race? I just don't see it, even though I love what Aston Martin have done this season. I think there's more chance of Ferrari.
More comedy pit stops.
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it is fascinating, and for me again, I'd love to have at least one more race that another team other than Red Bull win. A crazy weekend, and anything could happen in those 3 because it will be one of those 3 that win it. I would have thought if that happens, but that's what it's going to need for Aston Martin to beat Ferrari. Really with Ferrari 20 points behind Mercedes, that's the closer battle, and with both teams with 2 really strong driver lineups and the potential of being able to win a race through consistency, then I think that's going to be the fascinating one that will go right down to the wire.
That's exciting stuff.
It really is.
We will. Yeah, we're going to be watching the race and all the sprint race as well, and the qualifying and practice and all the build-up and everything, because that's what we love here at Racehouse. Please like and subscribe to the channel. You can do that just below here, and you can check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the others too. And we will be back. We're going to do the Qatar Grand Prix highlights and review. That will come next week after the race. Please like and subscribe, as I said, and comment. We want to hear your comments, particularly from everyone around the world who's watching, to do that. So we'll see you next time.
So Joe, I'll see you next time.
Okay, so I'll tell the viewers we tried to practice like a really slick ending, and then we completely messed it up.
I was going to do a shout out, and then I realised you'd done the ending, so it was.
That was okay. So that was a practice ending. It sounded kind of cool. Okay, all right. So what's the shout out? Tell me.
So the shout out is to another listener who's been listening to us, Jenny. Jenny de Jong, she's a big Formula One fan, and we talk lots about it. So she started listening to us. Famous dad, she's got a famous dad, BBC presenter Cliff Mitchell-Moore. So she is a wonderful actress, and so is her daughter. So work in my world, but massive Formula One fans. Always go off to Silverstone and do the camping for the weekend. She loves our podcast and says there's a little shout out to say hi, Jenny. Just checking you've listened to the end.
That's it. We only do the shout outs at the end. So, hi, Jenny. Thank you for sticking with us for about 25 minutes. So, if you want to shout out, put it in the comments as well, just like Jenny. And now she can shout about us and Racehouse and share with all her friends everywhere around the world. So, yeah, I feel bad doing this ending now. So, we should just kind of like do our usual bye, bye. You hang up. You hang up. You hang up.
Oh, no, you go first.
No, I was gonna say, well, see you next time at Racehouse, but it sounds so austere now. So I'll just say it's bye from me, Jolie.
And it's bye from me, Darren Reeves.
See you next time.
Take care.